Okay, y'all ready to get started? Let's everybody find our seats again so we can find out where the extra seats are for the folks that joined us after lunch. Yeah, come on in. Yeah, right. Let's go ahead and sit down and get started on the second half of the day. No. Wait, I talked to. There we go. How was lunch? Very good or just good? Very good. All right. Well, before we go on to understanding the roles and responsibilities and resources of the CTC, we have some folks here that weren't with us this morning. So we have the training coordinators from the different service areas with us up front. I believe we got a few. How about just stand up so everybody can recognize you? You don't mind, do you? Yeah. Thanks for joining us. We have notes for you, and there's a test at the end, but that's okay. All right. So I want to take 5 minutes, and I want to talk about what you discussed at lunch. So who in here sat with one of our host folks and actually did your homework? You didn't do your homework? Give the man a mic. Okay, so we had lunch with our host. I know at the table I was sitting at, we were talking about training. We were actually talking about where the training is going in the future. We were talking about what we're doing now, currently. We were talking about why is the pass-fail rate where it's at. What do you think causes that? We got a tech ops perspective. We had a really good conversation, don't you guys think? Yes. Yeah, I think we did. Anybody over there in our group want to recap what we talked about other than what I recapped? Everybody's shy. Okay, well, it starts with us, right? What the students we have get starts with the people who are responsible to train them. Does that make sense to everybody? So the more we get out of what we're getting today and tomorrow, the better chances of success for our trainees in the future. That's what I got out of our conversation. You did? Okay. Anybody else? One person? Just one. Thank you.
Well, it was after lunch. Mark Comer, Charlotte. Some of our conversation back here was at the higher level facilities. The way that the process is now, where you pick up people from lower level facilities, terminal speaking, and I think also the center, we had a discussion about the center, that we're trying to train some individuals who may not be ready for those facilities, but based on the process of getting people into your facility, you're kind of, I guess, forced into taking these individuals and trying making them level 10, level 12 controllers, terminal or en route. So it's a big challenge. So is it the INCEPT? Yeah, INCEPT. So we were a recipient of that, and I'm sure some other facilities are the same thing. So it's a challenge. So.
All right.
So I sat with Abby for lunch, and we talked about processes and some of the training, some of the directions and things that come out of headquarters and how they're, matriculated down to the field, and really what the impact is to the field, and also about, some of the TSS, some of the information maybe not be getting to the right groups about, what the benefits are, and kind of sharing that information with AJT2, and making sure that the benefits are being, really voiced at the right levels and the right areas, so people can see the impacts and the needs moving to the future.
Very good.
We didn't speak huge about training. We kind of went a little before that. It was talking about the placement, staffing, getting people where they belong, and then, of course, after you have them there, you kind of lead into what these others are speaking of, where new hire placements are going, experienced new hires in SEP, and if the facilities are ready to train them or which ones are or not, and that kind of concept that maybe a disconnect between headquarters to NATCA's goal to managers' goals. Everybody has their individual agendas, and we may not be getting the best results out of some of our placements because of these individual agendas, was kind of the common concept of what we were talking about.
So did anybody work on the I wish I knew when list? So with our service center colleagues here now, thinking about what do you wish training managers knew when they interfaced with you, and how do we work that? And we also have Sean Corbett here, our colleague from Learning and Development. And so there's soft skills training as well. And so what are those things that what's your wish list? And so please, folks, you can even text it if you want to. We'll get even more desperate. Hey, go ahead, Scott.
We just started, not too long ago, 2-3, the QA/QC course got revamped. We send staff specialists off to that. When they come back, they seem rejuvenated. They seem to have knowledge that they didn't have before, and we see a lot of positive results in the field from that. I know we have FTI, I guess, but we don't, it seems classes are a little outdated. As we spoke earlier, they're talking about old processes and old programs. That would probably help us get new energy going.
Okay. Very good. I'm happy. Y'all happy? Yes. Okay. Couple of new ground rules for after lunch. One, I know we get sleepy. And when we get sleepy, our arms tend to are great, but we don't know what they said. So, and there's, okay, so it's after lunch, and for some reason I'm right-handed, so I'm looking at everybody over here a lot. And I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring everybody over here. I love you just the same. So everybody over here, get up, take your stuff, and move over here. And everybody over here, get up, take your stuff, and move over there.
Say hi to somebody as you're passing by.
Howdy, y'all.
He's this afternoon. He's at 3 o'clock. Not here. You know what he looks like? All right. I think he knows.
Yeah, he's not here yet.
Do you know his cell phone number by chance?
Sherry, oh, so nice to meet you. Thanks for helping out so much. Y'all have been a savior for me.
He's watching. I don't think they're leaving. He says, well, everybody's packing up. Where are they going? Just talking to him. I said, oh, Abby's moving.
Get your stuff and get out of there. You move.
I'm good, man.
Hey,
We're out in the hallway.
you guys are good buddies. Oh, no. Stay in touch with you later.
Back corner.
I wondered if we should be in bed. She's awesome.
Hey, here we go. No, we're not. So apparently after lunch, I forgot the most important part. So I've been counseled now, and it'll probably go on my file. But how's the candy situation on the tables?
Great.
Dessert, I forgot dessert. So everybody's got enough candy to get through the afternoon. All right. So I've already kind of talked about our next agenda topic, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce the folks. Now, I got the cards this time because I wanted to capture everything in this group. Some of it's kind of comical, and I want to capture that on tape so I can watch it later. So, Jane Kristoff. Raise your hand because I've never met you. Oh, you're over there now. But like I said, I still love you the same. So she is the CTC program manager. And I have no idea what her fun fact is, but apparently you just finished all 6 levels of Go Ape with your family?
I did.
What is Go Ape?
It's a treehouse adventure. It's I thought it would be just 30-minute exercise. It's more like you went to the military training camp. You're on a zip wire the whole time.
Oh, very interesting.
50 feet above in the trees, doing all sorts of obstacles. 5 hours later, I was very exhausted, but I made it.
Wow.
Very
It's
cool.
a good team building exercise.
Now, see, I thought it was just some kind of a video game.
Yep.
Ah,
It's,
all right.
It's an interesting event.
Well, we'll welcome you up to the stage. You're up. Brian Harmelink, I met him during lunch briefly. Instead of me telling you what he does now, right now he's the deputy director for the Western Service Area South. And he has been all over. So instead of me telling you where he's been, I'll tell you where he hasn't been, flight service. That's about it. But His fun fact is very near and dear to me. He loves to scuba dive. And I love to scuba dive also. And the one thing that doesn't work under the water is a cell phone. And we're very common there in that regard. And then Dennis Scanlon, I have not had the opportunity to meet you. Where are you at? Welcome. Come on up. Dennis is the contracting officer for acquisitions. He introduced himself earlier, I believe, and this morning you had a question. Yeah. And this fun fact was kind of cool to me also, since I live in Kansas. I still have a home in Kansas. He just rode 200 miles across the Flint Hills in Kansas, which in the springtime is very, very pretty. It's one of those must-see places if you're going to travel, especially to Kansas City. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I'll leave it to you three.
Do I?
Yes, we have one for you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get started here. Let's see. Everything's on, right? Okay. Thank you, Abby and AJI, for having us here today. It seems just like a couple of years ago, we were here in Oklahoma City training up for the transition between ADCOTS and the controller training contract. It was just coming online. And now we're already into our third and final base year of our contract. So we're just going to walk through, if I clicker or someone can turn the charts, just a few things today there we go. Regarding the contract, give you a quick overview and talk a little bit about our roles and responsibilities. Probably some questions still remain on the budget allocation process and the requirements and orderings, and then we'll leave it open for questions. So we're collaboratively briefing today, and so the first chart, Dennis is actually going to give you the overview of the contract itself.
Well, good morning. Many of the presenters here today, I felt a little behind the eight ball because I needed notes from that. So what do we do on CTC? Well, we basically do two things on the CTC contract, one of which you're very familiar with, which is that we hire your ex-coworkers to come in and help you do training. And we do that on an hourly basis, and it's a very important part of the contract. 12 to 1,400 ex-controllers who come in are qualified and come and work on the contract all over the country. So you know many of them. The other thing we do, which has really come to the forefront more in the last year or so, is we have an innovation task, as you've heard about today. And we're starting to develop some innovation task orders with the contractor to do some things, for instance, with N90, to have the contractor help us to do some analysis and possibly some implementation in the future. I like to say that what I do as a contracting officer is I buy stuff to help airplanes fly safely, right? And so that's to support your mission, which is to make sure they fly safely, right? And I get it, we get it, that you are mission-oriented. You don't really care about the contract. You just want to get it done, right? So what do I do on this CTC contract? Well, I'm the guy who has to say, well, we gotta kind of do it to the rules in order to make sure that we've got a contract which is legal. And there was a question earlier about the 5 years, and much of that guidance on the length of the type of contract we have here comes from OMB, comes from our acquisition regulation, which is AMS. Many of you may have worked under the FAR, which is the other acquisition regulation that we don't use in the FAA. But those are the things we do. There's really three things on my function on your contract. Number one, I make sure that we're getting things for a fair and reasonable price. That doesn't mean we beat the contractor up or we drive them out of business. It means that we look at the market, we look at where folks are, we make an assessment of whether or not we're paying a fair price for those individuals' labors, and by the way, the contractor gets a fair profit out of that. And we learn about those things by getting feedback from you, from the marketplace, from other vendors who potentially could do this work as well. The second thing we do is we ensure performance of the contract. So, and there's how many in here, folks in here, are training administrators in addition to what else you do? Yeah, so a lot of you, so you know about this, right? In the facilities, we have training administrators whose job it is to work with our core, our contracting officer's representative, who is Ms. Angela Morris. Angela, stand up for a second there just so you can see. I don't know how many of you have actually seen her in person, but she's the person who looks at the performance of the contractor every month and looks at their bill and the hours and works with the training administrators to make sure that the services they say they've delivered, they have delivered. And often she will come to you with questions if there are discrepancies or work with you in that respect. So contract administration is a very important part of it. And at the end of the day, at the end of every month, I sign an invoice that says, yeah, we accept these services as delivered. So your role as training administrators, and really everyone's role in this room, is important, which is to make sure that the contractor is performing within the requirements of the contract.
Excuse me, you already have a question that's come in?
Yes.
So I'm going to interrupt you. Why was CTC online shut down? What are we supposed to do with the evaluations we logged in in that system?
CTC online is probably a better question for Jane. As a practical matter, CTC online does not affect the contract that's being performed by SAIC. SAIC has a quality assurance program within it that they go out together with, I just blew a fuse, I forgot his name, together with a QA representative, Cedric, and they go out and they do an assessment of the quality of services being performed. CTC online was not something that was requested under the contract, so I'll leave the answer on that, beyond that, to Jane from that end. But that is part of contract administration, is making sure that they do those, their quality assurance, which they're required to under the contract. So the last sort of piece of that ties all of that together is laws and regulations. I can't award a contract that doesn't follow the laws of the United States. It's a little different than, well, you can't have a contract that's illegal, but in the private world, we all know you can go out, you want to buy a car, you go out, you sign your name, and you bought the car. You got a contract. Offer, acceptance, consideration. On government contracts, we got hoops to jump through to get to offer, acceptance, consideration. Offer is when we put out our solicitation. We evaluate it. We have acceptance when we choose the contractor. The consideration is what we pay them. It's all the stuff that happens before that that sometimes makes you frustrated with us, and frankly, us frustrated with you, because we need to go through at least 4 review cycles with different organizations on every single contract we do. So when you folks are thinking about what your requirements are and as you pass them up to your organization, keep in mind that the sooner you bring them to us, the better job we can do of getting you a fair and reasonable price. And by the way, it's our tax dollars we're spending. And I think everybody in here takes that really serious. I've never met anybody in the FAA who doesn't take spending the tax dollars seriously. And, you know, as we said, we have a culture of safety, and we want to do that as well. But that's all part of our responsibility there. So, so how does that work for you individually? Well, what are we up to? Let's see. So, as I said, we hire your ex-coworkers to help you. And I think, and you know, actually, I'd kind of like to know, can I see a show of hands? For the, and Jim, I'll leave you and Wayne out of this, because I know we have a lot of talks on this. But in the field, how's that working? How are we doing? Are you guys like getting what you need? Maybe get a show of hands on that. Who thinks we're not, or who thinks we are? Okay, yeah. I mean, either way, we'll just put your hands up, right? Yeah. Who thinks we are? Yeah. We would like to hear if we don't think we're doing it the right way, because this contract expires on the 31st of March in 2020, which means on the 1st of April 2020, there will be a new contract in place. And that new contract will depend on you letting your organizations know what training is going to look like. Look at the challenge we have here on this. Look at what we've been hearing all morning about all of the changes that are happening. And by the way, these mirror what's happening in FTI. As the technology changes just as quickly, So the entire FAA organization is going to change. And so thinking about what can happen better and passing that up the chain to folks is really important, because and then for us to get it in the contract and send it out to industry and get industry's input on it is going to be really important from that end. So let's talk about the training administrators' delegations. And this was something that occurred really just under this contract. Previously, and I hasten to add, I had nothing to do with the previous contract. If you liked it, or if you hated it, if you loved it, I still had nothing to do with it. But under this contract, there are only two contracting officer representatives. There's Angela, who's the primary one, and then there's Maria Blair at the Academy, who helps us with Academy matters for the general delivery of services. But in all of the facilities, or most of the facilities, we have you folks as training administrators. What do you do? What do you have to help us do to administer the contract? Well, number one, you need to make your orders, and if you do that on time, then we can get the orders out, because we order monthly. And then you need to help keep an eye on what the contractor's performance is. And if you have issues, you should bring them to Angela's attention or my attention under performance if you have questions of performance. And occasionally we do have personnel issues and those things. And I think we've thankfully been pretty slim on those from the field. But if you have those issues, then you bring those to Angela's attention. And then most importantly is that look back every month at the performance that's been done, the hours, and your ability to say, hey, yeah, they really did do this, because that's the certification then that Angela rolls up to say, yeah, we're okay with this contractor. That entire chain is important because we get looked at by the IG. They want to know that we're getting what we're paying for. And so you're a very important part of that chain. Now, what can you tell the contractor to do? You can tell the contractor that, hey, today you're working on this item related to controller training. What you can't do is tell them to add hours, add work, and you cannot tell them to remove someone from a facility. That has to come through the contracting officer and through the contracting organization. But if you're not spending money, you can generally give them technical direction on a day-to-day basis to work on items related to controller training. And I know Sean, he moved now, but anyway, Sean was asking, there he is right here in the front row, was asking me earlier about a specific issue. And if you have an issue of, hey, I'm not sure I can get somebody to work on this item for me in my facility, all you have to do is let us know. Call Angela or me and say, hey, I got this issue. I'd like to assign this person to that. And what we're likely to ask you is, well, what level, what labor category are you thinking about? What is this person at? And does it match up with their labor description? I will tell you that my view of the contract is, if it's controller training related, I'm going to try to find a way to make it fit for you, right? If it's not controller related, then I can't do it. But we're going to try to find a way to do that for you. But we need to know what the issue is, and we need to deal with those on a per item basis. And that's kind of, it's kind of like if you go to the judge and you say, hey, judge, how would you rule in this case in the future? And they say, well, I don't have the case, so I'm not going to do it. We kind of take that same point of view on these things. But that's kind of in a nutshell, the controller training contract. It's not that different than a lot of other contracts, except that we hire these really highly skilled people. And that then comes with its own challenges because it's a very small labor market, which is kind of my way of saying, that I think retirements are a great thing because it'll make it easier for the contractor to get instructors. So they're looking forward to your retirement. Another question?
Is anyone analyzing the TRT data? The last contract training, we were told to input the true costs of training Is that being utilized to build better budgeting and performance models?
Okay, well, once again, I'm going to say I know nothing about the old contract. I came in under the new contract. That might be a question that Jane could talk about.
Could she answer that then,
Yep,
please?
when she's talking. And I'm actually going to be quiet now, so
Okay.
thank you.
So
Unless
Jane,
you have
can
other
you take
questions.
that question, please?
So yes, at the beginning of this contract, that was and is the plan through the TRT is to collect those requirements that are provided by the contractor as well as those that you as government are delivering as well. That information is there. It has not been analyzed to the extent to build a case for further funding to support those requirements. And I think, unless you want to follow up on that.
And so at the beginning, I know that when this contract first rolled out, having been a POC or point of contact in the Central, that was a big push, is to make sure that we identify all of the training that's being done, those that we're wanting the contractors to do and those that we are self-supporting. And we still need to document that, and especially as we're looking down the road at the 2020 contract and we're looking at the funding for those types of things, we need to be able to show what we need beyond what we are getting. And so most of the conversations that I have had, and I think all of you had, is if we just had more money, I'd be able to hire more contractors and I'd be able to do more things with those and reduce the needs on those items. But we need to be able to capture that type of training and that type of documentation for as we move in the future. So we're really good about, we're starting to get better here now, into year 3, really capturing and utilizing all of the funds that we have available and capturing what we need to spend the money that we have allocated, but we have not done a very good job of showing that we need additional funding or that there's additional requirements beyond that, and really to have that documentation. So I think we've gotten better at putting that in, but that's, again, a big push of us, and the POCs will be pushing that out to all of you, is to try to find a way to capture that, and so that as we start to go into future, we have that documentation. That also supports, again, you've heard all of the items, forward in 18 and 19 and all the potential budget cuts that potentially are coming upon us. That data and that information actually helps us to support the fact that we need the funding that we need. And again, we cannot reduce this contract, because every year there's discussions around, do we need all of that money for training, or are we to the point where we've got enough controllers in and we don't need that funding? So those conversations are happening, and are actually conversations that are around the FY19 budget that are occurring currently, and about what we need, the potential cuts and what's out there. So it's very important to put that in.
Yeah, I think just one follow-up, Brian. I think it was for not only the facilities that are receiving contract support, but for those that are not, all across the board. So just to keep in mind, that would be helpful. Let's see, moving on into kind of the contract team. I think you've met, for the CTC, you've met Dennis, our CEO, the program management organization. That's the organization that I'm from, so I am the program manager for the contract. The core, as Dennis introduced, Angela, she is, as the core, she resides in the PMO and actually works for me, but is delegated authority through Dennis as the CO. Now this is more of a perspective from the field. The Academy, of course, is also part of the CTC contract, but the PMO receives its requirements from AJI, and then flowing down from there, Brian and AJT, the POCs, as well as the TAs. For roles and responsibilities, again, for the PMO, the main role for the PMO is cost, schedule, and budget. So those are the 3 main things a PMO oversees, and the same for this contract. Dennis touched on the point of the invoices, and of course that's what he and Angela roll up and validate, and the contractor receives payment from. I don't think there's probably much else to cover on that. Just a quick three items there. AJI, for CTC, they are our customer. I look to them for the requirements and collecting and prioritizing and delivering those requirements for the contract. Anything else you'd like to add, Priscilla?
Just my role as the AJI representative Afternoon. I'm Priscilla Merritt. I also do recurrent training. That's my primary job. But I also do the CTC as the AJI representative. So I work with the training managers, or basically the POCs from the service centers, to obtain the the CTC requirements. And once I get the requirements, I ensure to it that I transfer them over to the PMO. I also ensure to it that the budget, your budget allocation, is put into the TRT. And then the POC will know what requirements you may enter.
Thank you, Priscilla. Thanks. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian here to talk a little bit about
Priscilla, so are you AJI's POC for CTC then? And wow, that was a lot of acronyms.
Yes, I am AJI's CTC representative. Okay, so AJI, of course, is Safety and Technical Training. The CTC, the Controller Training Contract. And as the representative, I work with the service center's point of contacts to ensure to it that your requirements are entered.
Yeah. And then this question is specifically for Brian. Congratulations. What is your biggest wish for field faculty personnel for effectively using the CTC?
My biggest wish going forward, really, and it's a conversation we'll have going forward here too, is that we have a finite dollar amount of training that we have. What I've seen in the past, and although I think it is getting a lot better, at times we don't really go ahead and actually use the money that we have allotted us on a monthly basis. A lot of times people are putting in wish lists or putting in things above and beyond what they actually can accomplish in that monthly. And so what that does is that hurts in the redistribution of those funds that could be used for facilities that have the ability to utilize those funds, because it is a finite amount. And just kind of tagging on in my role. So each of you, there are 3 POCs that are representative. In the East, you have Lindsay Adrian that represents the East, and in the Central, Don Baker, and in the West, it's Todd Jacobson. And those POCs were identified and are basically speak on behalf of the director's offices and helping to distribute the funds. Where I got kind of involved in all of this, and again, they speak for the directors, and in the times of the training and trying to utilize the funds, as a deputy director, I'm representing all of AJT and the executive offices, trying to make sure that as we move the money and as we put the money in, that it's going into the right places, and the facilities that need the funding are actually getting the funding to do that. And to make sure, again, as Jane and I've had lots of conversations. I brought all the POCs into Washington, D.C., or AJI. We had a conversation there, because there's always, the thing on the table is okay, there's money out there. We hear there's money out there, and we're not utilizing all of the funds that are out there. And the answer is that is not the case. And so we have a finite amount of money, and this year it's around $52 million is what the field has for for funding. Our goal, or my goal in working with AJI and the PMO, is to utilize every single dollar, not leave a cent on the table. What we've currently done is in trying to work the burn rates into that, is that we know that in every month that roughly somewhere around 6 to 8% of all of those requirements that you put into the TRT do not actually get funded. There's a lot of reasons. There's sick leave, there's classes that get canceled, or those types of things that are not. So right now what we currently have done, and working closely, and we monitor it, is we're actually allocating 8% over top of what our normal monthly allocation to cover for the fact that we're not burning. Although in my conversations with Jane, we're getting closer and we're getting better. And so what we really need to do, and really to focus as POCs and as training administrators, is making sure that we truly have the ability to capture what we need in that given month. Granted, we don't have the ability to save from one month and use it the next month or down, and so we're dealing right now on a month-by-month basis. But what the 3 POCs have, and for a while there, it was they only had the ability to switch money within their Eastern and then Western within Western and Central. Conversation we had, we've now given the POCs the ability that they can work and transfer money amongst themselves, East, West, and Central. So if Eastern doesn't use all the money, there's conversations that we have on a monthly basis that can move money to West and Central if they need it. So we're adding a lot of flexibility so that we are doing that. So my biggest request, again, to go back to it is that you truly put in that monthly what the requirements that you need so we have the true picture so that if we have extra funds, we can move them to someone else that can use them.
The next question is there a way to approve budgets further in the future to plan for classes? Right now, we get approval a month ahead of time. Can we go out 3 to 6 months?
The problem there is, as we work, it's just a month. There's too much that changes beyond the 1 month that's moving. I mean, you even look at it for a lot of facilities. You don't even know if that's sometimes a week or 2 weeks that you're going to get a student from the academy, you know, based on the placement process moving forward. You know, some of your stage 2 and 3s and things beyond, you can prepare a little bit as you move forward. But the monthly basis allows us to be flexible, and with all of the ever changes that if you start to get those approvals. Now, in the TRT, you do have the ability to project out for months 2 and months 3, and I think even in the TRT, you have the ability that you can see what your budget is going to be. 3-month look out. You have the ability to look out in 3 months what your budgets are going to be. So, granted, you don't have that approval, but your budget, given very slight nuances, is going to be pretty close to what that is, 2 to 3 months. So you have an idea of what you're going to be looking at. And again, you know, the budgets are driven by districts and/or centers, and that is your budget to use. And if you don't use it, that's when it gets redistributed. But if you can use every single dollar and dime, then you know what? Go ahead and use every single dollar that you have as it moves forward.
2 things. You mentioned, Scott Campbell from Memphis, you mentioned earlier about the 2019 budget concept starting to come up already. You know, with the GM process just starting the training conversations, pretty much unknown, to be honest, of how the contract training is going to mesh in with that thought process, considering there's 4, I guess, now. There's going to be 18 more developing over the next 6 months of how that's going to go. So there should be a lot of new data coming in of how they're expecting to use the contractors. And then on top of that, you're talking about using your money, and you mentioned it just briefly there, and it's not to blame anyone, but the inconsistency of knowing how you're going to get people out of the academy, especially the smaller your facility, the more crucial the money, the more it fluctuates with an individual. 2 people coming in your building versus none is huge to your budget in a smaller facility, just because medical is running behind or security is running behind or they've been told to stop all of a sudden because you're told you're getting people and you're told to stop now because they've met their quota for the year and those type things. So at the end of the year here, where I know facilities that were expecting bodies to show up in July and August have now been told, no, they won't be there till October. So now July, August, September training money that was expected to be used and budgeted and planned in the 3-month outlook is not going to be used. So it does kind of look negatively upon us for not using that money, but the plan has nothing to do with what we had planned or orchestrated. It's not really a solution, more of a complaint, but that is just something that we're trying to figure out as a TA for 11 facilities to figure out how to balance that money when we get so many variables dealing with the distribution of the new employees.
So, you had a lot of questions and a lot of there. So to try to unpack it. So first, you're going to hear later on this afternoon from Bill Cowan reference the air traffic services realignment. But in the conversations that I've had, that's really not going to change, in terms of the budget piece. It's not going to change a whole lot for each of the training administrators. What you will have is different facilities. So right now, how the budget is determined is there is a formula that drives that and spreads out the money on a monthly allocation here. Actually, Lowell Hout from Kansas City Center was the one who actually, with Bill Holland and there were Tito Gonzalez and a few others came up here a few years ago and developed. And so there's a formula out there, and what that formula bases it on is it's based on developmentals in a facility. So you get so many points for a developmental that comes out of the academy. And then each stage in the training, you get a different allocation. So you get 10 points for an academy developmental, but as they get to stage 4 in the en route environment, or stage 5 and 6, they're needing those contract resources less because they're getting more OJTI, so now they only weighted 2 or 3 points. CPCITs right now, we've, again, we don't know what the help is. Some need more help than others coming in, so they're weighted as a straight 5 coming in. So all of developmentals are based on those point categories, so that's how we spread out the money. So as we go to the new realignment, all it means is that the district funds are going to be a little bit different. So instead of, there's a couple of test districts, for me it's the Seattle district. Again, they have all of the Seattle facilities plus Seattle Center. So what's going to happen is that funding is now going to become one allocation for that new district. So instead of $100,000, they're going to have $250,000 or whatever that. No, and we didn't. We did not change, at this point in time, because air traffic services realignment is not hitting until really October of 18 is when we're moving. So we've already had the conversations as to what is going to be the right time to go ahead and to start changing that allocation. And those conversations have started already, and we're trying to play out. So I know that, as you're going to hear from Bill, that the next role on the air traffic services realignment starting in September is to talk about the training piece. And so there may come a point at the end of that, and I think the goal, like for the QC, which just rolled out, the goal for that was the conversation started in June, but the goal is December 31st, all of the new districts are using QC support under their new, the new district alignments. Even though they're not there, but the facilities are supporting it. There will be also a goal that comes out of training. That may be the point where we decide, okay, let's go ahead and have the funds so they're allocated. So those are the conversations. We have the ability to move that and work with that. We just need to have some lead time to make sure that the developer can go ahead and make that adjustment. But we're already having those conversations as we move forward from that.
And you're talking. I'm sorry, and you're talking about the tool,
right,
because
talking about the tool.
Right. So the overall budget remains the same. It's just a matter of just parsing. So like Brian was alluding to a few minutes ago. So when we were planning the budget for CTC, we're making those budget requests 2 years ahead of time. So right now, when he was talking about, they're looking at potential impacts or cuts in 19. So we're defending 19's budget, and pretty soon we'll be, 20's already entered. FY20's already entered into the orb. So just keep in mind, so that's how far out we have to plan the budgets based on the known requirements that we have now. And so the other thing I just wanted to point out, not only Dennis talked about having a new contract in place by the end of this, when this one's completely finished in March 31st of 2020. We'll actually have it in place before then. I think in this one, if many of you remember, there was a 5-month transition. We had ADCOTS running. CTC was awarded in March. ADCOTS ended in September. So we might not have quite as planned for quite as lengthy of a transition, but again, time will get here very quickly. But I just wanted to point out the budgets are 2 years in advance, and that's, yes.
Will you define what TRT is?
Yes, that is the training requirements tool, and I hope most of you are familiar with that are entering requirements every month, and that is what we use, or AJI uses to communicate the budget each month, as well as the TAs enter the requirements and the actuals each month.
Another question, coming from someone who is a former RPO, which is remote pilot operator, with CNI and SAIC, and watching from the live stream, I received almost no training due to being off the street. On my second day, I was tasked with running a simulation in which the controllers were certifying. Luckily, I did not fail in my task, otherwise the controller would have received a free pass. This was last year. How have you improved since then in training your RPOs?
So that would be the training would be done by SAIC. So I think from what I'm hearing is the RPO is stating that he or she was not trained by SAIC. I think that's an issue that we can take back, unless you would like to talk about.
So as feds, we hire SAIC to handle our personnel issues. We do not get involved directly with the personnel except as they affect their performance or as we interface with either their program managers or their program office through the contracting officer. So we wouldn't really have any input as to SAIC's procedures as long as they're delivering folks to the feds who are here to perform under the contract. So I think that's about much as we could say about that.
And I'm just going to kind of, to move off of that, or just, to categorically, so for those of you that worked under the contract, under the Raytheon contract as well, it was a performance-based contract, and so you had the bi-monthly evaluations and everything, and that was a part of it because there was a part of their incentive or their award fees were tied to that, and so that was why the bi-monthlies. Well, this is a different contract and a total in mechanisms, and those bi-monthlies went away. And now it's the responsibility of the contractor to go ahead and to do the performance on their employees and to do those. And if you have issues with employees, you should either be working with Angela or, in most cases, you go directly to your CSS first and have those conversations with your CSS and deal with those. And if you feel that the CSSs aren't dealing with it, then really going to Angela's. But now we're dealing more on an individual, and that's why those bi-monthlies have gone away, because it's not a part of the mechanism, and now it's more the responsibility of the contractor.
Okay, so I'm Dwayne McQuillan from Anchorage Center. Abigail said we should talk about good things. The contract's been very good at our facility. They've done a very good job. SAIC, I got a great site supervisor. The issue with the RPO, somebody's working that right now. I think somebody out of SoCal. Is anybody out of SoCal here? I have built into my local training order a requirements for an RPO to be certified in my facility. And I can use anybody. I can use an A-side, and they have to fulfill those requirements. So I would suggest, if you don't have that, to have that so they're certified, so that when you do evaluations, they're done, they're good, they're acceptable. The TRT is awesome. We have, I would say, we've had so many, there's a lot of turnover there with the people watching, Todd Jacobson and Andy Curran, things like that. They're awesome. They do a great job. We've had other people do it. The TRT's working. I've had problems with the tool a few times, and I've had people get feedback in probably less than 2 hours. So there's a positive thing for the contract. It's been very good.
I'll pass that along to the contractor.
Hi, I'm Kelly Stesdal from FAA Center. Just a quick to follow up on that. We have an excellent contract CSS as well. He does a great job, very physically responsible. One of his issues that we're finding is that even though we have the money in our budget to do things, we don't have instructors to do things. We're lagging behind, running out of people. Everybody retires. God love him. He is down there trying to recruit them to his department. Are we finding that across the board? Is that just a Memphis Center issue? Have we heard that from the academy or anything else about lack of qualified instructors?
Jim, you want to touch on that? Mr. Doskow.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Doskow and I'm the division manager at the academy. We've had this issue in the past. Working with the local SAIC group, they've worked really hard to change some of their recruiting strategies to get more instructors, and they've been doing a really good job lately. How that can affect you guys, or how you can piggyback on some of those activities, I'd say we're really working with your local contract site supervisor would be real important. A real first step is having that conversation, and if they're not sure what to do, have them reach out to the folks at the academy. The SAIC team there is really robust in fulfilling that need, and I would say SAIC up through the program management group is really good. To piggyback on that last RPO comment, at the academy we have a really robust and documented procedure for a process for certifying RPOs and instructors, and we have that process documented. So if you'd like help in maybe documenting a procedure for your facility, reach out to us. We can share our documents, and it can maybe be a good framework for you guys as you develop those procedures in your facilities. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Dennis, I was just going to say, as a matter of kind of dovetailing on that, Jim, for documentation on the certification, that is in the contract. So just as the instructors have certification, so if an RPO is needed to have certification that hopefully is following along with what's in the contract. So that's where, you know, we would be able to hold them accountable for that. I'm sorry, Dennis, you had.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Jim said, which is, if you know, don't keep your retirement a secret. And if you've got people who are retiring or people who are going to be moving on, don't keep that a secret as well, because SAIC has to go out and find people who are as qualified as you to fill these spots. And so they need to recruit early. And we would like to think you can enter the training requirements tool and say, hey, I need somebody for 40 hours next month. But the fact is, sometimes you can't because of the very specialized nature of the training. So the sooner you can give your CSS and let that bubble up to their program office and let Angela know from our side that those requirements are going to change, so we can work with their program management in DC to get them working on that. They're very responsive, and they want to hire. So as soon as you know a requirement's coming, let us know, and we can then start them down to the road. I mean, we don't like to send them down false alleys, but we do like to know if something is definite coming down the road.
And just going through too, you know, I think it's facility specific on your ability to hire or not. I mean, there was a point where in Oakland Center they could not get any instructors as well for a while, and Oakland Center's been able to hire instructors and has been ramping up instructors at Oakland. So I think it's kind of it's an ebb as they're able to work through that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Oakland was one. I think Miami was another area. So it depends on the availability of the instructors. I mean, the retired folks and them wanting to work. The other thing I just wanted to point out, again, we're not asking the contractor to hire people. We're asking for hours. They translate that then into they manage the workforce. So they're determining of the folks they have hired, you know, who's part-time, who's full-time. Do they need to hire more folks based on your needs? So if you're increasing, if you tell your CSS that you're going to need 40 more hours of IN2 support coming up, you know, that's then what they do is they go forward and figure out if they actually need to start looking for more folks.
And I'm just go off of that just a second, then I'll get to you. But one of the things as a TA responsibility you have, and I know sometimes it comes up, is do I have the ability to say I need additional hours at this facility, or can I get contract resources at this facility? And so as a TA, you do have that ability to talk to your CSS and say, you know what, I need support at this facility. But what you've got to remember is you have the monthly allocated budgets that you have. And so your ability as a TA, and even as you move into the new air traffic services realignment, you'll have actually probably more budgets and more flexibility to move, is you'll be able to take those resources and say, you know what, I want to focus over here on Charlotte today and hire a lot of additional resources at Charlotte. You know, it may come at the expense of some of these facilities, but you know what, Charlotte's at 70% staffing, and I need the additional, some of these others are at 85, and they might be able to self-perform. So you have the ability to have those conversations within your internal district to do that and to move your budgets and live within your budget. So if you need resources here, talk to CSSS and say, hey, we're going to, you know what, my goal is I'm going to up my resources here, but I'm going to come down here to stay within those budgets. So those exist currently as your role as a TA. Now, if we decide as a organization that we want to help and to spread that out, we could come back and say, you know, and I have issues at LAX, so we could come back and say, you know what, LAX has this huge issue. And so we have the ability to say, you know what, we're going to focus a lot of contract dollars on LAX and then spread that around. And we can make that decision as an organization. And that's why the POCs are involved, and that's why the directors and the executive staff's involved. We have those ability to stay within that and working with that to move and to direct those resources where we need to within the confines of that budget. So, you know, given the flexibility to the POCs to trade, you know, East, West, and Central, that gives a little bit to and having those conversations. And we may say we need to focus here or we need to focus there. But you currently, within your own district budgets, you have that ability to do so and stay within those budgets without having to ask, you know, permission. You just have to work with your CSS and make sure that the tool, those requirements are in the tool to support, you know, as you're starting to prepare 3 months in advance, you should start putting those requirements in the 3 months, say, you know what, I'm going to need my support here.
So we just want to make sure that we get back to that question that was asked first about why was CTC online shut down and what are we supposed to do with the evaluations we logged in that system?
And CTC online, if I remember correctly, was mostly for the old Raytheon contract.
Right. In fact, I might have to turn that over to AJI. So the PMO did not. I'm sorry.
And so part of it went back to the fact that we no longer have to do the bi-monthly, if I remember correctly, we no longer have to do the bi-monthly evaluations, which was a lot of that information was contained in CTC online, if my memory serves me correct. The semi-annuals were do that. So it's no longer a requirement to have those, and now it's up to the contractor to go ahead and to deal with those assessments and work through it, and that's why the tool was. There's no longer a need for it. So.
Just one follow-up. For this contract, we, I think, probably very recently did put out a questionnaire form, and that came from Angela, and that was what she uses to assess performance on a yearly basis. So we do contractor performance yearly, and so I think, Angela, probably in the March timeframe, February-March timeframe coming up, you'll probably see another questionnaire from her. And of course, any time in between, as we've pointed out, for any TAs, please contact Angela if there's any issues with performance. Don't wait until you have a questionnaire. But again, it's not a performance-based contract. We do not have a semi-annual award fee, incentive fee structure on this contract, which I think was driving a lot of the issues with possibly those evaluations.
And, just as we move forward, too, and we're talking on the training, and I know it was mentioned earlier, hey, we need more robust training, and for, training administrators, one of the things that we had at our last conversations at the POC is also about developing training around the contract and your role as a TA, as it provides a lot of this in moving forward. So when if you have new training administrators coming in, that we have some conversations and some training that we have for you, as well as potentially some interactive and using VTC and some of the conversations that we have with the POCs, also to help bring new training administrators up to speed. Because sometimes when you walk in, you're seeing a whole lot of new, and you don't get, a lot of that's not in the current courses, and so you're kind of going, what's going on and what's my role? So we are working on that and understand that that's a delta as well.
Bill, I'll go ahead and ask a question. Carl Adams from AJI, only because I recently came from the field. What is the importance of capturing in the TRT the governmental employee that is, regardless of their function, what is the importance of capturing that training that we deliver in TRT when when there's no cost associated with it?
Well, I would beg to differ. There is a cost associated with it. It's the training that going forth. But again, as a part of it, we need to capture. We've always estimated what the cost of training is, and so by trying to capture that, we capture the contractual training, and we're costing the government part of that as well, so we can actually start to now put a dollar amount to the cost of the training all the way through. And as we look at future contracts, that comes into play. And if we can go ahead and cost that out, it may be cheaper to have a higher contract, as we move forward, and a higher ceiling limit if we need that for training, because it's less expensive to do the contractors than it is to do the government. So being able to capture that gives us that data and that information so that we can make a better decision as we go into future contracts.
The only follow-up I would just like to add to that was, as far as the cost associated with that, you asked Carl, the plan was that, yes, AFN would probably be the ones that would be assessing that cost for them to go in there, because it's not like a contract cost. It won't be just a flat rate that's negotiated. So at some point, if the agency wants to go there, AFN would be adding those costs in for that.
As an agency, you know, and all the data that's coming out outside of training, we're trying to actually put together what's the cost of an airplane going from point A to point B, and trying to be able to, you know, our goal at the end of the day is to be able to go to Congress and say, based on our budgets here, this is what we can perform. And so if you give us only X for our budgets, what are you going to take out? Because this costs this costs this, and this costs this. So it's all about trying to get to that point. And before, we've always said, hey, it cost a lot of money, it cost a lot of money, and people are now saying, what does a lot of money mean? And so that's why we're trying to put some numbers to what's actually out there. So does anybody having any issues with the TRT? It's slow? Okay.
Okay, I always said nice things about the TRT, and I really love it, but if I take a vacation for like 5 days, I'm in trouble because I only have a couple days to put stuff in. So I would like it to be able to have a little bit bigger window, maybe for, I noticed you extended actuals, that was really nice, but there's only a small window to ask for funds. So that'd be my only complaint. Other than that, it works great.
We'll take that back.
Did you want to point out that on the TRT window, there are documents? It doesn't show it on.
Go ahead.
This is the first, I think, the front page of the TRT homepage, and many of you see it, but I'm not sure if all of you see there's some documents down. We didn't screenshot it on the left. It might be helpful, at least for right now, till we update any further helpful FAQs. I think there's a AJI policy document on the front page there that outlines the whole business process of how you move money around, who to contact. I think there's probably section J. There's either the statement of work or a couple of other documents that were, I think, deemed helpful. Just wanted to point that out. If you haven't seen it or noticed it, you can click on that page. Here's another link to some FAQs. A lot of these we set up right at the onset of the contract award. Again, trying to give everyone the copy of the statement of work, the section J2, which outlines all the labor categories in the contract, and any frequently asked questions. And we, as Brian said, we are in the process of updating that to the most current information. I think I saw our 10-minute time. Is there any other questions?
We would get easier, I think, to get, when we try to get ATMs to go in and put their government time in, we try to get them to do that. We're pushing that hard. But when it's that same little 5-day window that everybody else has, of course, it just gets more volume and more slow. I don't know if that was some way to have that open for another window for the government employee time to be entered away from the time that we're doing all the contract money. Maybe it would slow down the volume or number of people in at one time. Because it's hard to get an ATM of a small facility to stop and do that, and especially when the tool gives them a couple issues about twice, then all I hear later is the gripe that it's too slow, I couldn't have time, it messed up. Maybe a different window somewhere middle month or something maybe might be a suggestion.
We'll definitely take that back.
Good stuff.
Any other questions? Any last thoughts?
Hi, I'm Hope Cavallo from Minneapolis Center, and talking about the slowness of the TRT, you guys might already know this, but I learned this from my counterpart right here. Chrome works a lot faster, so I was very frustrated when I used the Internet Explorer, but that would be a good thing for your homework list.
So you're send it in text.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll turn it back.
Thank you. Thank you. I turned it off. I really did. Okay, let's keep it moving. Any other questions? We got 5 minutes. Should we hit a parking lot question real fast? No? All right. We do have a parking lot. I can't read it, though. I also celebrated that milestone birthday.
Can we read them for you?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
All right, the questions on our parking lot right now is what new tools are you planning to use and what's coming? What are the UAS regulations for Part 101 and 107? What are some of the best training tools being used today and how are we going to adopt them? When will we see tools we can use?
Okay.
What's commercial space link to the training community? And where are we with being able to upload field-developed content in ELMS?
All right, let's kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Yeah. Since we have Sean Mansfield standing right here and he's next, let's go ahead and do number 1 and number 4 on that list. Knock them out before the next presentation. But before I do that, everybody remember Sean Mansfield from earlier? One more interesting, the one I love, is he's a retired Marine.
Hold on, Chris. Not everybody remembers Sean Mansfield because we had all the service area training coordinators come into the building at lunchtime today. So welcome, service area coordinators.
And also, while we're up here, I want to introduce C. Haley Cycle. She is the Curriculum Maintenance Team Program Manager here in Oklahoma City for AJI. And they're going to do the LCMS presentation after our parking lot.
And before you get started, Sean, I've been asked if all these service area coordinators would please stand and be recognized. No? Phil Bettis, there he is, folks. Did you? Yeah. I'm just listening to Dawn. You ready for your first question, Mr. Mansfield?
I'm ready to go. Go for it, Sean. Let's make sure this is working.
What new tools are you planning to use and what's coming?
I'm going to answer both of them real quickly. None and never. Is that good? Does that work for you? It's a great question. New tools, we're actually getting ready to talk about one of the biggest ones, the Learning Content Management System. That's a huge one we're going to try to get out there. Other tools, I feel like I'm being put on the spot here.
MITRE tech transfer?
So I think it depends on what we're calling tools because we are trying to leverage a lot of different training technologies that we can put out there, and they're being called tools. So a lot of the MITRE stuff that we're working on, the radar vectoring, the memorization games, the simulation stuff we're all working on, I think that all falls under that tools perspective. So we're working on a lot of different initiatives. What I would think about as far as tools go, the distance learning platform and the networks that we're trying to put in place and the access to those are the big things. It's a tough question when you ask me when we're going to be able to get them because we're really working a lot of the acquisition, the contracts, the getting the folks in place to be able to put those together. That takes a little bit of time. And then from there we can put the implementation plans together. So I don't really have the exact answer on when, only because a lot of the front work that needed to be done on this for the last 5-10 years hasn't been, and we're trying to catch up very fast. The common database stuff, the access to the training analysis data and things, I think I said that earlier this morning. We're going to try to get that up for you in a year or so. We would like to start putting capability out there, small pieces of that, with full functionality in a year. The Learning Content Management System, which we're getting ready to talk about, is really big on the training side and the content side. That we're trying to implement and get set up and start putting content in within the next 3 or 4 months. But to get it fully functional, it's going to take time. There'll be a lot of these systems, They're going to grow with us. We're going to make changes. So I doubt that you're going to see something just dumped on your lap and say, go use it. I don't think we're going to do business that way in the future. I think we're going to try to put things together incrementally, get some capability out to you until this full system's functional. So the days of us taking 2 years in a vacuum, back in a shop, and then rolling something out are gone. We're not going to do that. We're going to work with you to get you incremental capabilities as we have them built. Any questions on that? I don't know who asked that question, so did that answer? Does that work? Okay. Any other things before we roll into this brief?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, and for those who don't know, C. Haley is my counterpart on this one. C is doing it on the curriculum side, so I'm going to take the first 5-10 minutes. C is going to jump in, and then we'll answer all the questions you have about the learning content management system. How many people have heard of the learning content management system? Okay, good. I won't get too many hard questions on this one. First, let me put a little bit more definition around what we're talking about here. When it says learning content management system, we've had a lot of confusion in the last several months. Together, and it's going to help us do better at our training content management, things like that. So what is it? It's a platform that allows us to better deliver our content, better develop our content, have our content all in one place, update our content. There's just a lot of benefits to it to solve a lot of issues that we currently have with our training content right now. It's going to allow for rapid development, rapid distribution of all our content. What are challenges and why we're doing this? Big things right now is we have multiple tools out there. We've got vendors developing in multiple systems. We have our contents all over the place. It's in different places. It's not up to date. You can't tell what the versioning is. That's a real big problem out there. We can't readily repurpose content. So if you have a new class you want to build, we can't take content from the old stuff and just repurpose it. We have to redevelop totally new. That's a big problem. That's cost us a lot of money. When you have updates to your policies, your procedures, anything, right now you have to redevelop a whole new course. You can't just go in and make those changes and have it repopulate to every course that has that piece of content in it. So we're trying to change all that too. So those are some of the big issues. Somebody already mentioned earlier this morning, we trail industry on this. Most academic institutions already have content management systems out there. We're way behind. The benefit to that is they've already learned all the lessons. So we're going to leverage their lessons that they learned, and we're just going to move on forward and jump on board where somebody's already been. Make that next slide. Just to give you a quick picture of what this thing's going to do for us, it's a single place where we can develop, maintain, and manage our content. If you look at the two boxes on my right, your left, development and management, that's where we're really struggling right now and where this is going to fill in. I'm sorry, I'm standing in. Can you guys see? Oh, I got to stay in my X's. So anyways, so development and management of our content. Delivery piece, that's more your Blackboard, your Elms, those other systems that are out there. We're trying to really hit those two boxes on the left. As I said before, our content's in different places. It's being developed in different ways. Our management of our content is all over the place. It's being managed either at the field level, the academy. It just can't, nobody can really even tell us where all the content is. We're going to try to bring all that together into one place using this software so we can get a handle on it and provide not only just better training for you, faster, meet your needs faster, update it, get it more accurate. You're just going to see a lot of benefits come out of this. What are the benefits? I've mentioned a lot of them, so reduced time for the training updates. And one of the biggest ones, other than the others I've already kind of mentioned, on the far, that'd be my left, your right, up in the top corner, what we really want to eventually get to, besides collecting all this information, getting it all in one place, be it all updated rapidly, how can we build our training in such a way that we can tailor it to the individual? So we need a system and we need to use technology so that you, if you've already had training, don't have to take a 200-hour course if you know 100 hours of it. You can test out of it. We can rapidly change that course to meet the user's needs, the trainer's needs, and you take 50 hours instead of 100. Think about how much time that would save you out in the field. Mentioned already this morning, most people said recurrent. We keep doubling up. We're taking the same things over and over again. How can we use technology to do those things and reduce some of that training time out there? That alone in a system like this would pay for itself. So above all the benefits out there that we're going to get, that's what I already mentioned, that's a real big one that'll really be good for your needs. And benefits, it's obvious. This isn't rocket science who it's going to benefit. It's going to benefit everybody. What we really want to do with this system is we're not taking this and looking at it as just an air traffic or tech ops system. Say that again. Oh, yes, I'll bring that up. We're trying to make this enterprise-wide. We are really looking at this from more than just air traffic training, tech ops training. We're trying to set this thing up and partner with the right people so that this system can be used FAA-wide to solve all of the FAA's training problems, because they're the same everywhere. And the more information you get into the system, the more valuable and usable it is to build training that is consistent across the FAA and reusable. As Abby was mentioning, our biggest partner on this is the Academy. They have most of the content, they have the delivery for the most part, and they already have a lot of the ideas on how to do this. So our biggest partner, and we're actually what we've done, and we've taken the roles and responsibilities for the setup and implementation of the LCMS, and we've divided those roles between us. Barbara and I have divided who's doing what. So even on this project, we're each leading different parts of the project. So that's the kind of partnership we've created on this one. And I'm going to turn it over from here. C's going to talk about some of the things that we've already started doing with it, and then we'll answer questions.
Thank you. No, you can't walk away with the clicker. I got to have the clicker. Hi. The same time that Sean's been working on this, the conversation has been about, okay, what content are we going to migrate first? And so in our opinion, the best way to attack this was to migrate our e-learning. So when I say e-learning, I'm talking about our beloved computer-based instruction, or as we refer to it, the CBIs, and all of those courses that are, I'm going the wrong way, ELMS, ELMS deployed. So that's what we're going to start with, is to capture all of our e-learning and put it in a plan. So what I've been working on over the last 7 or 8 months is to develop this plan that provides a priority list of all of the e-learning courses or events, a methodology for transitioning it into the system, into that software, and this provides leadership with a plan to where we can make the right decisions about what courses do we want to migrate first, and what is that cadence of migration. So what I'd like to do is talk to you about what we did real quick. Is you've got to look at this from, I'm a little bit country and I'm a little bit rock and roll. So when we look at the one side of me, because my background is in educational psychology, so I get into a lot of foo-foo stuff, is I wanted to provide a curriculum indicator. Now this curriculum indicator gives us time and effort to actually move a course from where it resides right now into the learning content management system. But that's not complete, because I needed a work group of you guys to assist me to be able to identify these courses and to categorize them by type of training, by how important they are. So we did both things. So the first thing I want to talk about is that curriculum indicator and how I created that. So here's the first thing. First, I had to identify the courses. I want to shout out to the Academy, to Barbara King and her group for assisting me in finding out exactly how many courses we had and what that list consists of. If it hadn't been for her, I'd still be looking. So thank you, Barbara. So we identified the list of the courses. Now, I love how you can peel an onion back. So the first thing I found out is that in the air traffic arena, I have 104 e-learning courses. Over on the tech ops side, I've got 62. So if you just look at those numbers, you say, wow, we know where we need to start. It's over there on the tech ops side. There's only 62 courses. When you peel the onion back, that represents in hours of training Okay, I had a moment when I found this out, and it was a moment that I had to pause and say, oh my goodness. So now that I know the number of hours against the courses, what I wanted to do is drill down farther in that to where I could come up with that time and effort indicator. So for those that like math, looking at variables and algorithms, this is what we came up with. Attendance data. Thank you to the field. Thank you very much for providing me tracks data, information to tell me for the last 3 years how many people have taken these courses, both in ELMS and in the CBI arena. Assessment strategy. If it's performance-based versus knowledge-based, there's a time and a complexity effort. But to further break down complexity of a rebuild, we looked for the number of graphics, the number of animations. Do we have the source? How interactive is that course? I'm happy to say today, and you're going to feel the ground shake, is I have 104 courses, all of them in one place right now, not in a great place, ready, Sean, to put them in a good place. But I have 104 courses, and I know exactly how many pieces of that course I have, which is phenomenal. I think this is a first in that area. So I've got the FUFU slide, or the curriculum indicator. So now what was really important is for work group input. And this work group input, thank you, Carl Adams, Jennifer, Alan Tallman, if you're out there, for working with me to get the right people together for a 3-day workshop. And in these 3 days, these subject matter experts that came from you guys went through that 104 courses and identified some that probably should be archived. And at lunch, I was talking to a couple of people about this. I said, you know those CBIs where they say, go to the end of the runway and light the fires? We can get rid of those CBIs. Yay! Yay! Identify the type of training. Is it qualification training, and if so, which stage? Validate the domains, meaning en route and terminal, and the new one, which I call cross-domain, because a lot of our CBIs cross domains, and that's very important information to capture. And we also had a discussion about recurrent. That was interesting, and we set it aside for another work group. But there are feelings about the recurrent training that some of them should be maintained, because they would work well as refresher remedial training. There's others, one and dones, and we need to look at that whole grouping and make some decisions about this. I think the fun thing that came out of that work group is they're now having those conversations as they look at what they're building. So I think that was a very neat thing that came out of that. So then we rank ordered. So the courses were rank ordered by the curriculum algorithm, that indicator, grouped by domain, and further categorized by qualification stage. So now I have all of this information to where 7 or 8 months ago when I was asked, okay, which one should we do first? I panicked. And I said, I have no idea. I now have presented to leadership a document that shows all 104 CBIs rank ordered by complexity and how hard it will be to rebuild them and how important it is from the field's perspective. So thank you to all for helping me on this, and I delivered that report June 30. So it's done, and if you're interested in it, I'd love to share, and I'd love to hear comments on it. What are the next steps? Here comes my teammate.
So let me tell you where we are programmatically for this. We've acquired some licenses for this, and we have a large team that's starting to do the setup and implementation of the system. Our team consists of folks from IBM who actually run the system, and we're putting it on their cloud. The General Dynamics is part of the team, and then we have another small contractor from CSSI. So it's a really good team we've put together to implement the system. We're also going to work with our vendors that are our common training developers, and we're getting ready to bring them together to form a small team to help us with the migration strategy. So this is just tip of the iceberg, the CBIs. This doesn't even cover the thousands and thousands of hours of ILT training, all other stuff that needs to get into this. So we're going to try to put a small team together to build a migration strategy, and we're going to use our vendors to do that because they're the ones that are going to actually do the migration. So that's going to happen here in the next couple months. We hope to have the system up and ready for content to be started to put in it by September, and then we'll go from there and we'll start populating. The integration of this with Elms, Blackboard, and how we deliver and reach to the system, not quite done with that yet. We're hoping mid FY18 that we'll have that integration set up. We have some FedRAMP issues, which for those who aren't aware of that, there's security things you have to go through with cloud, and we're working through those issues right now. We're well underway. A lot of the documentation has been built for that. So we're probably looking at a critical point about mid-18 that we'll really be able to start putting some users in there and start letting people use the system. Probably end of 18 is when we'll probably be fully functional and have it starting to deliver stuff out. I know a lot of stuff's coming out into 18. It's just what it is. Any questions on that? Did I get all that?
Will the learning content management system encompass CEDAR?
I think we're mixing apples and oranges there. I'm going to get way outside my box here, so if there's any CEDAR experts in the room, please jump in. But the learning content management system is strictly for our training content. It's not capture of training data or safety data or any of those types of things. Remember earlier when I talked about we're trying to build a data network and we're trying to build a training network? This is strictly on the training side and to be part of that content management of all of our training. Did that answer that, whoever had that question?
Will training development for the learning content management system go through one entity?
Ooh. Can you say that one again?
Will all training developed for the learning content management system go through one entity?
No, not at all. We're like I said before, we're trying to make this enterprise-wide, and we're setting this up to be a system that everybody will have access to, use. It's based on user licenses, just like any other software out there. Once we build the governance and the use of the system, which is what we're doing right now, templates, governance, how we're going to use it, how are people going to interact, what are the roles and responsibilities within the system for training developers. Once we get all that in place, this can be used by anybody. Anyone who needs to develop training can use the system to develop training in it because we will have those processes in place, and all you'll need at that point is access to the system, developer licenses, and things like that. So that's part of what we're working on over the next couple of months. We're trying to get best practices from folks out there. This system has been used by other government agencies, so we're learning their best practices on how they set up their roles and responsibilities and lessons learned. I know some people are probably wondering, why did we choose this one? We chose this one for many different reasons, but the most important is there's only 2 systems out there willing to get FedRAMP approved, this one and one other system. So we didn't have a lot of choice, but that's okay, because this is one of the most powerful LCMSs that is out there. It probably has more capability than we're going to use initially, but what I told my team to do is let's not set this thing up for how we do business today. Let's take the system and let's set it up for the maximum it could ever be used for, and then we'll change our processes and how we do business to leverage that capability. So it's a little bit of a different mindset than when we started. Originally, it started with trying to define how we do business and how would we do that in the LCMS. We're actually going back and we're figuring out how can we best use the capabilities that the LCMS can provide us, and what does that mean that we need to do differently as an organization to use the system appropriately. Did that answer that question?
Will there be a library of local training topics that other facilities can utilize?
I think I know the answer, but she hasn't had any questions.
Thank you. No, if I hear the question well, so will the learning content management system allow for research to find topics to be able to use at a local level? And the answer is yes.
Hi, Natasha Chappelle, Kansas City District. First of all, let me say that this is really, really exciting, and thank you so much for doing all of the legwork for this. When I was in D.C. About 6 months ago on a year detail, I ran into some major obstacles with trying to get a course into ELMS or convert it over from CBI into ELMS or whatever. It was just a nightmare, to be totally honest with you. So, exciting stuff. So my question is, just so I'm clear on how this is supposed to work, like ELMS, my understanding of it is that we get a lot of courses through ELMS that are DOT courses, you know, the human trafficking and things like that, the recurrent courses. Are the ELMS courses going to be integrated into this? I saw you said CBI/ELMS, or will you still have to do some of them on ELMS, and how will that work with reporting to the DOT for those requirements?
Yeah. So actually, Barbara. You go for it.
Yeah, I was headed to Barbara. Here, which one to give it to?
On the ELMS system, I tell people the ELMS system is nothing more than a delivery system for you. Currently, Oklahoma City, the Academy, is hosting the ELMS content server. Initially, the ELMS courses that are housed on the content server will migrate to the LCMS. That will take us out of the game business of actually hosting those courses. So initially, those courses will. As for, I heard someone mention something about you know, local courses and things. One of the reasons why the Academy is partnered with AJI on this is because the Academy has had a significant role in the ELMS implementation project. ELMS is very much centric in terms of domains. What we're envisioning is matching the domains in the ELMS system to the LCMS. That means if I'm here at the Academy, my courses can be, these are the courses that are in the Academy that only I can touch. So hopefully, as the more and more that we begin to use the system, and you've got some enterprise, you have some other stakeholders, you have AVS, you have ASH. The Academy, one of the reasons why I see a big win using the LCMS is because the Academy worked with just one course for AVS. Took us several hours and $90,000 worth of contract hours just to convert the course out of a proprietary tool into something that can be managed long-term. And so the beauty about that is that the FAA will have control over their own courses that are built in something that can be used, you know, that can be used long-term, whatever system that you go to.
I think we have a question.
I understand how you're going to build them and it's going to make great strides for building, but it sounds like a couple of these questions about ELMS and about CEDAR and stuff is more back to the tracking of, I understand this is going to make something better to build, but how does the tracking port come back to us? Right now, ELMS is in a legitimate way that we can track something has been done. If you take that away, and CEDAR is a legitimate way to track the way some things will be done. So is this going to be a tracking mechanism as well, or is that the new world order tool that's coming forward in the future that will be the tracking mechanism?
I like that term, new world order tool. Can we use that? So let me ask you a question quickly, and we haven't solved that one, but we have started the discussion. Barbara and I were just talking yesterday about this triad that we have, that we're creating between the LCMS, Blackboard, ELMS, et cetera. And this falls right in line with what you're saying. The content will be stored in the LCMS, and I'll give you a little bit better analogy. Barbara started it with being ELMS is the delivery. If you look at when you go to the store, you go and you pick your stuff off the shelves at the store. Well, that stuff was built somewhere else. It's being, all the ingredients and everything else built somewhere else. That's at your factory. Well, the LCMS is going to become your factory. It's where all the ingredients are for all your courses, and you're going to go in there and get those ingredients and put them together, and then that's going to be delivered either through Blackboard, ELMS. We're trying to now figure out what that's going to look like. ELMS will probably eventually be the place where we do tracking. We may keep that functionality there, but take the content storage, because courses you're getting right now, they are courses that were built, packaged, pulled out and stuck in Elms. We're getting out of that business. We're going to have everything in the content management system. And when you see a course coming through Elms or wherever you get it, it's actually pulling the content from the content management system. We're not packaging anymore. You're saying what you need, you're putting it together, and it's being delivered that way. So that's something we still need to work out, but we do envision probably Elms will keep that functionality of tracking what's been taken, but the content will no longer be resident within Elms. Did that answer? Okay.
Let me just build on that, Sean, because so Elms is also a delivery model, right? So it's a place you can track. It's also a place that if you're doing individual training, you can log on to Elms. What I would offer is when you think about a learning content management system, so that's a delivery form. Another form of delivery is instructor-led training, right? But that content for both the Elms delivery, so you're getting it through a computer portal, or on a blackboard, or live, the content stays there. The beauty is, if any of you have an individual who has been in training, is in the last stages and has just one thing that they're working on, you could do a search on the metadata and find those pieces and parts relevant to what he or she might need. And you could do it as a briefing item, right? And so it creates an agnostic way for you to store all that content so that it really fits into what our vision for how we deliver training to the right person at the right time for the right reason in the right place. And so it gives you a lot more flexibility as a training administrator as we mature in this process. I hope that helps, because it took me a couple months to really wrap my head around the fact that this is not a box that we're buying. These are software licensures to help us manipulate the information that we already have and we need to update or that we need to create in the future.
And to tag on to that just briefly is when we talk about our e-learning, people will automatically come back to me and say, are you talking about the CBIs or the Elms? And so that's why I'm trying to say the e-learning. As it's been talked about, is the ELMS is just the faceplate, where you're getting things off the shelf. When you look behind the curtain or look in the back room, how things have been developed, then you're talking about all of the different software, all of the different locations of where that is. That's what we need to get that content, that curriculum, into one location. We may still push it out through Elms or a different platform that would record and give us that record of taking that course. Does that make sense? Other questions?
Can the learning content management system be used to track non-technical training courses such as succeeding in your first year, which is SYFY? Thank you, whoever sent that in, for actually telling me what that acronym meant.
Okay, so the tracking piece of that, I don't think that's why we're going to go with that. I think it would be a place where we can house all that and would be delivered via Elms or wherever else would it still be the same tracking mechanism as the other courses. But yes, it can house all of the content for the FAA. We can do the DOT stuff. You know, we're trying to set this up so it will handle everything and everybody's stuff, and we can deliver it the same way across the FAA, so we aren't doing it different than safety's doing it or AVS is doing it. Everybody's doing it the same way. And the beauty of it is once we do this, if we can, as Abby said, get our metadata tagging right across the agency, then everybody will be able to find stuff. We'll be able to reuse content. We'll be able to reuse things across the different organizations instead of redoing and redeveloping and spending hours and hours and money to develop stuff that's already been out there.
Will there be additional work groups assisting the remaining course transition, and will it include course revisions?
Okay, say again.
Will there be additional work groups assisting the remaining course transition, and will it include course revisions?
I think the answer, if I'm understanding this right, the answer is yes, is that we have a plan for just one section of our training, which is the e-learning. and we have prioritized that. But as we go forward, there'll be other work groups, there'll be other discussions to make sure as we migrate this over into the learning content system, we're migrating what we need to migrate. As we talked earlier, just think about all of the computer-based instruction courses we have. We have little code. We only have the executables. Those have to be rebuilt. But think about once we get this all in the system to where it's there viable for you to use in one location. So the answer is yes. There will be more work groups. There will be more discussions about our content and how we're going to revise it, version it, and have it in the system, our new system. Does that answer?
Natasha Chappelle, Kansas City District. This is just so exciting to me, so I'm sorry.
Can we, oh, wait a minute, can we high five?
Oh, yeah.
Boom, okay, I feel better.
I'm just curious now, do you guys have a target for, I know you said the end of 18, but do you have a target for like the first, let's say Datacom, use that as an example. Do you have a target for the first new program going out to, or system going out to the field that you're just going to do full-fledged right in under the new learning system? Because I think that would be a good one.
So the TFDM, Traffic Flow Departure Message, right? I got the acronym right. Oh my gosh, there's all the data manager, thank you. The program manager was just over in my office last week. And he said, can we please use the software code and language that you want to use in the learning content management system so as we develop this training, it's new? And so one of the things that we're doing as we learn together with the larger organization is working with them, because I know Carl has lots of stuff for Daryl Hudson, who's our newest member to the permanent manager on our team. To like en route stages 2 through 4, we're looking at getting to revising them, and Sherry's like, please, she's been begging me, Abby, can you get to that? So as we rebuild it, we'll just put it into this platform. So it's really simply revisions are things that we're going to always do, and so it's just simply a matter of, okay, so let's just put it in this format so it can be usable and more flexible in the future. So as we iterate, you'll see it creep up. So it won't be a big bang. It's going to be, you're like, oh yeah, finally that's here, right?
Sorry. Just tagging on to that, what we're actually hoping, because you're going to be the end users and you're still going to, we're hoping that your user experience is better. We figure out how to do that better. But also that all you really end up noticing, wow, we're getting stuff a lot faster. It's a lot better. It's reusable. We can update it quickly. It's accurate. It's current. That's what we're hoping you notice. Not, like Abby said, not a big bang that we rolled something out. Just all of a sudden you're going to be like, wow, this has gotten a lot better. What happened? We'll say, well, we got the LCMS online. And it's going, because it's going to take time. The more you get into it, the more it is functional, the more efficient it is. So it's not going to happen all at once. But hopefully it's seamless to you and you don't really notice much different other than you're getting better service than you have right now and better courses and content.
If we're able to house content developed at local facilities in the learning content management system and other facilities are able to search that and use it, how will we maintain the integrity of the system and the content?
I'll tell you a lie. I don't care. No, I mean, I'm kidding. It's a joke. No, I think what we're going to do is that's part of the governance we're working on right now. We don't have all those answers. We have a whole team working on trying to figure that out, because that is one of the big issues that has come to us, that we have the national level training, but then there's some stuff that needs to be done specifically for each facility. So we're trying to address how that will be put into the system, managed. The national level is easy because we'll manage the accuracy of that. So I don't have the answer for that today. It is one of the answers we're working on, and Barbara's got her finger in there to add to that.
One of the other beauties about the system, if we set it up similar to the ELM system, which is the learning management system, the way you manage integrity and things in that system is through domains and through roles. So me as in the academy domain, I have a kind of a top-level administrator role, which means I can go out there and write, view, and do anything. Well, on the other hand, Sean may be in in my domain, but he only has the ability to view. So if I'm envisioning, and I haven't seen the system, but Sean and I have talked a lot about kind of strategizing in terms of how we need to set it up. And if you set it up that way, one of the beauties of that is that you have ELMS administrators out here that are very familiar with roles and domains. And so that will help cut down on some of the learning curve.
So if I'm hearing this right, it's going to be almost like the facility director's repository. Are y'all familiar with that, where you can go in and look at those? Is that what she's trying to explain? Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. So you can go and view another facility, but not going to change your documents. Is that right?
But that wouldn't keep them from being able to access data in LCMS to build a new whatever, correct?
No, and it would not prevent that. So what we're hoping we'll be able to do, and we're working through the roles and stuff, if it's specific to your facility and you developed it, then only you're able to change it. But other people can access that and bring that content into whatever they're trying to build. They just won't be able to change the content. So if it's some stuff about your facility specific and you want it that way, they'll be able to use it, just can't change it. So that's how we're going to try to set that up. And then national level would be the same way. And the reason you do this is there's pieces of content that are being used in 400 or 500 different courses. We want to be able to, if that piece of content changes, we can go into the LCMS, change it in one place, and it automatically populates to all of those other courses where that content was, changes at one time. So we're not rebuilding 500 courses, or we're not trying to search every course that has that. So as policy changes, things like that, facility information changes, we automatically update it. It populates. If somebody pulls that content from your facility and they're using it in their facility, it'll automatically change that for them, and they'll get that update. It will be automatic. So it's really kind of neat.
Cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned that that's a safety plus, right? There's a safety aspect to that.
There's a safety aspect to that. No, I'm just kidding. No, having accurate information out there is definitely, it's definitely a safety issue. And when I stepped into this job only a month ago, but prior to this, working other stuff, that was one of the big issues I kept hearing was there's all these different courses. They don't all match each other. The information's different. One facility thinks it this way, one thinks it's that way. It's just not good. For safety alone, we all need to be working off the same level of information and the most accurate information, and quickly. If it takes us a year to get a course out, by the time you get that course out, that information is all changed, and we're rebuilding the next version of it. That's kind of crazy. Go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, so, like, remember the first day at the academy, the safe and efficient service? So this is safe and efficient. That's the goal. And so when we think about the administrator's strategic goals, one of them is around risk-based decision-making. This enables that. Because as we identify a change, instead of biting our nails and going, oh, let's hope we got to every piece of content, we'll be able to. It's not going to happen overnight because we didn't get here overnight, but we can start moving and migrating in that direction. And so as we get the content loaded, we're going to reduce training risk in the NAS, that the people that we're resourcing with information have the right information. So I look at it as the most important reason for a learning content management system is to reduce safety risk.
Well, we got 20 minutes. We can stand here and look at each other or keep answering questions.
Okay. Be careful what you wish for.
All right.
Where are we with being able to upload field-developed content in ELMS, and will it transfer into the learning content management system?
Let me introduce my new BFF, Barbara King. Come on. You know you want some of this.
Those questions are yours.
Okay. So the Academy has served as the gatekeeper for uploading content, and that was deemed by the ELMS program office. At that time, they did that because a lot of courses were going up in ELMS. They did not have any control over the content. Some of the courses were built correctly, some of the courses were built incorrectly. But the bottom line was that we also served as the ELMS help desk as well, and so a lot of those calls and things over courses that were not billed appropriately filtered to the help desk. And so initially that role was open to several people to where, you know, people could upload their courses. The program office locked it down and said, okay, Academy, you will serve as the gatekeeper for every course that goes up in ELMS. It has to be tested, and then we test it in a staging area, and then we move it to operational. And so the ELMS, the E-Learning Technical Advisory Group, the LTAG group, also got involved with this in terms of putting standards out there. There are standards in building web-based courses, but they did not have standards when I first put up the very first course, which, by the way, was about 40 hours, which was ludicrous, but that's what they wanted to do. They did not have any standards for people to use, and so courses, again, were formatted in all different, whether it was Captivate, Camtasia, Articulate, it just didn't matter. The courses were all put up there. So hopefully we can have a discussion. Since Sean and I have started partnering, we have been also working with the ELMS program office and also serve on the Learning Enterprise Architecture team in terms of that governance and the rulemaking around how to use ELMS. And so I think even since his visit, we actually talked, the Academy is going to pass on a lot of the best practices that we learned from the ELMS implementation. I see Sherry Higgins back there. Sherry was part of the ELMS team. I kind of feel a little old because a lot of people that were on the ELMS implementation team, they have retired. So I thought maybe that's a sign that I need to retire. No. But anyway, so we had some discussion, and we're going to pass on those best practices to AJI that can be maybe disseminated or communicated to the field in terms of how you may be able to better take advantage of the capabilities. And so with that, the question about uploading the content. We don't want to just turn on the faucet and just let you start uploading content, but we'd like to be able to give you some guidance around that. And so a lot of that conversation is going to come through the ELMS program office.
You might want to hang out. Just saying. There you go. There you go. There you go.
We're ready.
So this question isn't about the learning content management system per se, but are there any plans to develop something to help new tower controllers learn aircraft recognition and characteristics?
Oh. As a matter of fact, there is. We were just had some good demos. Abby mentioned a little bit of this earlier today. Similar to the radar vectoring and all that stuff, we had some good demos from a small company that's already done some of this work, and we are working on getting them on board hopefully within the next month, maybe a month and a half. We got to get through the contracting process for them to do exactly that, to build those basic recognition, tower recognition things that'll supplement that higher end simulation capability we already have. So we have that radar side that I kind of showed you today. We're doing similar for the tower side. So that's really what I have on that. Abby, you good? Yeah, it's going to be very fast. We actually are looking at trying to deliver stuff by December for that crowd. With that not be the end all, so a lot of these early capabilities we're putting out there, that's to get something to you quickly because we know there's an influx of new folks coming in and we got to get started. But there is a plan with every one of these initiatives to have the follow-on to the initial capability, which is get you something, get you tools, but then build upon those tools so they become incrementally better and build upon what else you need out in the facilities. Yes, sir.
On that same note, we understand and we recognize that there's a ton of tools out there that each of you are using that can assist us with spreading those tools nationwide, implementing them at the academy, whatever we need to do in order to work on how we serve our developmentals, how we serve all our people in training and the workforce. So if you have tools, if you have data storage things that you're using at your facility, if you have training databases or however you do things, we know that they're out there, okay? We are open to seeing those. We are open to you sharing them with Sean's group so we can see how we can incorporate the good things within them in building our future. So keep that in mind. We know it's out there. We want you to share. That's why we're learning together.
And what you'll find pretty much from everything I've said is I didn't come up with any of these ideas. They were ideas other people brought to us. We vet them, and then we figure out how to turn it into a program large enough to be sustainable and get it out to everybody. So if you have good ideas or good training tools that you're using that everybody can benefit from, get them to us. We'll vet it. We'll put it into the big plan, and if it fits in, then we'll figure out the programmatics to make it sustainable and get it out there beyond just your facility. That's what our job is.
Sean, we have a question. Who do they pass that information on to?
Best to me or Carl, or both, actually. If you'll hit both of us, then it'll definitely get action.
Thank you.
And are you guys, I think there's something going out with all of our email addresses, right? To all the, okay. So Carl and I are the best for that. Is that it for questions?
Wow.
Do you guys have anything else you want to add? No? Okay.
One thing.
Oh.
Very important. Today, I'm the picture guy. Okay? With that, back to you, sir.
You can have it. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm sitting back here. I'm diligently listening. However, I'm distracted because I see a lot of the slinkies being used. So I think it's time for a break. What do you say? 3:30? Okay, 3:30 it is.